All right.
All right, we're here.
You're the host. Yay.
I'm the guest host. My name is Madison Fitzpatrick, and here I have Steve Shull and
Jeffrey Saad.
Jeffrey Saad. Let's set the stage here. Tell me the story of who you guys are, how you know each other, and what are we doing here?
I walked into Coldwell Banker, Beverly Hills East. I was a new realtor, had my little suit on. I thought I actually had to be interviewed and get hired. I didn't realize anybody would take you anywhere because they have nothing to lose. And I walk in and somebody literally says, "Oh, you got to meet this." I still wish I remember who it was because I owe them so much. Like, "Oh, you got to meet this coach, Steve Shull, but he's intense, so be ready, And we sat down in that front office. I still remember that little glass office at Coldwell Banker at Little Santa Monica. And, Steve said something to the equivalent of, "So what are you going to make this year? What do you want to do?" And I was like, "I don't know." It's like, "Well, then you won't make it. Pick a number. Let's get started." It was great. And from that moment, I was like, I always loved that statement, what gets measured gets done. You know what I mean? If you don't know where you're going, you'll probably end up somewhere else. And it was like, Steve was my instant GPS in the business. And it was just like, all right, I think I'm going to do what he says because he knows what he's talking about. And that's really was the next 7 years straight, head down, one-on-one every week. I did exactly what he said. And it was just a great journey. And then of course we became great friends as well. And it was, it's just been magical.
And that's the thing is we're not really here to talk about real estate, right? You guys are both in the real estate business. You've both been in other businesses and professions. I'm not a real estate agent. I'm a writer. And what we're here to talk about is mindset and maybe particularly for people who are really trying to build something for themselves, whether it's a business, a project, Isn't that right? That's
mindset is the foundation here. Of everything.
Yeah.
If you don't, like what I like to say, if you don't get your head on straight, then nothing else matters. And I don't care how hard you're working. Again, the real work is the inner work. Yeah. And that's what most people really don't understand. They're directing all their efforts toward the outside world and trying to rearrange the universe. And guess what? That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
The place you got to start with is what are you doing on the inside? Mm-hmm. And that's what this podcast is all about.
Okay.
And that's what's amazing about you, Steve, because in the early days, it was all about the master of process.
Right.
And that's, I think, where Steve and I click too, because it's like, there is a map for everything. It's like, you do this and this and this and this, you will end up there, done. But what's amazing about you is over the decades, you've realized what you just said, which is like, if you show up and do A, B, C, and D, that's no good if you're not the best self showing up, because A, B, C, and D will have a very different outcome based on how you show up and approach it. So the process alone isn't enough. It has to be how you're bringing yourself to the process.
Right.
It's the two together that then all of a sudden make the magic.
Right.
Because we all live in the same city, right? But if you talk to 10 different people, you're like, are we even in the same country the way you think compared to me?
Are we
right?
on the same planet?
Yeah. So it's there's something else there that's directing people.
Yeah. And most people are not going to find that something on their own, right? Like that's why you always say everybody needs a coach, because most of us, like we need some guidance, guardrails, feedback, practice.
And, you brought something up. The idea for most of us, all we're really doing with our life is we're chasing after comfort and trying to avoid pain. That's all we're doing. So we're just reacting to whatever's happening in our life. Mm-hmm. And again, that's just survival. Mm-hmm. And for most of us, the thing that's really running our life is just fear. All we do all day long is think about what can go wrong and how would we deal with it. Mm-hmm. As you said, it hasn't even happened.
Yeah.
And it probably won't even happen.
Yeah.
And yet that's what we're doing all the time. Just making up, the next shoe that's going to drop and then how that's going to impact our life in a bad way.
Yeah.
All right. I want to jump back because you just mentioned, you're a chef and you are a former NFL player. So that's why we were surrounded by all this really cool memorabilia. This is not just stuff. This is his stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. So Steve, coaching has been a feature of your life since childhood, since you started playing competitive sports. I think a lot of people, myself included, go through life without a coach. Like I've never had a coach, I don't think. I've had a few instructors here and there. I've had professors. I've had like maybe some people who I might be able to call a mentor on some level, but not a coach. So talk to me about this idea that everyone needs a coach. What is a coach? What is coaching? Why do we need this?
There's so many ways I could go here. All right.
Go crazy.
Let's start with what is a coach? In my mind, my job is to position people for success based on who they are, where they are, and what they want.
Love it.
And, that's how I view my job. And the irony of sitting here today is, and calling this, everyone needs a coach. Well, my big coach, Don Shula, wrote a book with Ken Blanchard called
Oh my God.
Everyone Needs a Coach. And he was I had coaches my whole life. And the reason being, I just had this thing inside of me. I always wanted to get better at whatever I was doing. And sports was my thing. And my mom she was always so nervous because I was so one-dimensional in what I wanted to do.
Didn't you have a great story? She said you change your own diaper if you could.
Then my dad said, if you could, you would have changed your own diapers. And so I wasn't drafted. I was what they call a free agent. I got a call to go down to Miami. And at the time, I had a big perm, really long hair, and all this.
Where are the pictures? We got to
picture
see
in,
this,
please.
right?
Yeah.
They're good. Anyway, so I go right to get my hair cut before I fly to Miami.
Step number one.
Step one.
Fit in the helmet.
And I go down there and I get to training camp, and Shula's just coming in. He was just been out for a run, doesn't have a shirt on, little overweight, sweating. He's got a little bit of a lisp.
Attractive.
Yeah. You're like, hot.
Yeah.
And that was my introduction to him. Anyway, and I was there for 4 years. And what I love to say about him is 365 days a year, he had one goal, win a Super Bowl.
I love it.
365 days a year. Never, ever backed off that in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
And just being around him, he was so relentless in terms of his pursuit of perfection. And the interesting thing, I was watching a documentary not too long ago, and I played in the 80s, and I was listening to guys who played in the 70s, and they were saying the same exact things that I say about Shula. You want to keep him off your back? Be perfect. And if you weren't, you would know about it. And it permeated the entire organization. And so for me, and this is, where I'm evolving into, is what I want to get into in my coaching practice deeper and deeper is training real estate agents as if they were professional athletes. Cause football is a performance sport. So is real estate.
Yeah.
In real estate, you don't get paid for your time. You only get paid for your results.
Yeah.
And the irony is you're not in control of the result. You're not in control of the outcome. So you have this thing that you're up against.
And I just want to jump in for a second and say that this is true of anybody who wants to run their own business.
Right.
There's so much that you're going to have to do to make your business run that nobody is going to give you an hourly wage for.
Just because I tried doesn't,
Right.
It
don't count.
doesn't pay the bills. So, having been in that environment, one of the things you have to do in professional sports is you have to learn how to play under pressure, because there's pressure all the time. Literally for me, my job, and this is not an exaggeration anyway, my job was on the line every single day. I could get cut any single day of the week. People don't realize that in professional sports. It's happening every single day.
Yeah.
And I was on that bubble. And I did get cut once and brought back. So I actually experienced that. And so you have to learn how to adjust to that. And in real estate and many businesses, you've got to be able to think in the moment. You've got, we called it in football, read, react, close. You've got to read the situation. You've got to know the best response given the situation. And then you have to make the play, which was Shull is the thing that I can still hear him saying on the sidelines. It still rings in my ear, 40 years later. Make the frickin' play. Make the frickin' play. That was his big mantra. And that's what we were trained to do.
Tell me about your experience being coached.
Well, one of my favorite stories. Well, what he did for starters is really laid out the roadmap. Like, you don't need to reinvent the wheel oftentimes. Like, it really is like, here's the 6 things, the building blocks, do it. And that's it. So it's clarity and a path. But then, as he said too, what he did for me was to understand me and tap into why I want what I want. Okay. Now I got the path, and he understands how I'm going to show up to that path. But the best thing of all is just keeping it real. I will never forget. I tell the story a million times. Like, he's like, all right, you want to be in Bel Air? Fine. Door knock in Bel Air. They're not coming to the office. The sellers live in their houses. Yeah. So, I get my little suit on and I'm up and down the street, and this other couple, had a million signs there. People used to say they own the neighborhood. And I'm like, no, they're leasing. And for a year, I'm knocking, I'm sweating. I'll never forget. I call Steve and I'm like, this is ridiculous, man. I've gotten one lead. I look like a freaking Bible salesman or something to walk, and I'm sweating. He listens in the silent, and he's like, keep knocking. It hangs up. That's it. And it was but he could have entertained this whole dialogue with me and felt bad for me and talked. No, he kept it clear and simple. Keep knocking. That was one of my first realizations of there's no expiration date in your dreams. And sure enough, year later, 2 years later, all of a sudden those other signs are gone. Our signs were there. This year we've done 3 deals from door knocking 20 years ago, or, not just 20 years ago, but the compound effect of all those years. So it's really just keeping it real, keeping it focused. But
that's the thing is you had that moment of doubt and fear.
I would have quit right there.
Am I doing
I just needed him to say, yeah, you're
thing?
right. Sweet. I'm done.
How many people are out there in a moment in their lives where they're having that thought? Am I doing the wrong thing?
Yep.
Why isn't anything working? What do I do next? And that's what they need is a coach to be like, okay, either, you're doing the wrong thing and here's a better thing, or just shut up and keep doing it.
It's funny because when he talks about that moment, I remember my moment when I'm knocking on doors in a suit and tie in Fullerton, California, in August. It's 100 degrees, dripping sweat. The whole point of wearing a suit and tie is to look good,
right? Look ridiculous.
Like an idiot.
And I'm going, what the hell am I?
7 chest hairs I have.
What am I doing here? What am I doing here? I played in a Super Bowl. I worked on Wall Street, and now I'm knocking doors in Fullerton, California.
In a sweaty
suit. I mean, so.
What has my life come to?
But it's about changing the story.
Yeah.
I mean, that is to me what I hope everybody can walk away with here, because all I did was say, no, you know what? I'm the frickin' mayor of Bel Air. These people are going to be lucky to meet me. I am a gift at the door, and it may not be today, but when they're ready, they will be happy to know me.
Yeah.
And nothing actually changed. I was still a sweaty idiot.
It's all in your head.
But I looked at it differently, and all of a sudden it was like birds and sun. It opened up, everything in life is the story, and I think that's the first thing people need to do, no matter what you're thinking. I say this now all the time to people, like when they say something, and it's usually with a very strong opinion. And I said, what's the opposite of that story look like? Why does it have to be either way? It's a story. So why can't it be a good one? It's a choice.
And again, change your story, change your life.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to do in this podcast is change people's story from one of fear to one of curiosity, because that's that little 2 millimeter shift. When you go from, oh my God, what's going to happen to, I wonder what's going to happen.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. It makes me think of the door knocking situation, right? Because
and nobody in their right mind wants to knock on a door.
No, I never once did. I never got out of the car and went, woo.
Yeah. And if you ask anybody, like, do you want a stranger to knock on your door? Like, hell no, especially today, right? Like, it's weird. It's scary. It's like, what are you doing? But you can, if you make the decision that I need to knock on people's doors to to start those relationships that are going to be the foundation of my business, that's what I need to do. So you can either walk up to the door thinking, oh my God, what are they going to say? They're going to think this is crazy. They're going to think I'm going to threaten them, or I'm going to try to sell them. They're going to respond terribly. Or you can walk up to the door thinking, I'm a gift. I'm here to give to this person. And if I don't walk up to the door, it's like I'm taking something away from them.
Bravo. Exactly. I mean, no has got to be your crack. Like, I used to fear it. Then I started looking forward to it. Then I begged for it, because like, if they don't, then I don't have any value to add. If there's nothing that they're uncomfortable with. Right. And it's like, it's flipping it. It's like, amor fati is, one of the tattoos I have. And it's not just the love of fate. It's more of not just dealing with what happens, but actually being glad it happened and embracing it as exactly what was supposed to happen.
I want to wrap this up and just bring it back to this podcast. What is it all about? Okay. It's not about real estate. It's not even really about business, but it's going to be great for anybody who's trying to build a business, because you're getting in your own way, right? Like, that is what holds people back more than anything. They think the environment is holding them back. They think the business climate is holding them back. But for most people, there's a huge amount that you can do just by fixing your head.
Yeah.
Right.
Everyone wants to start with the technique, but you got to start with the way you show up, because that's everything. Everyone's way too busy thinking about what's going to not work to stop and just go, what do I want to work? What do I want this to look like?
Yeah. And it's not about thinking yourself magically into success or happiness or any of that. It's about getting really clear on what you actually need to do every day and having the confidence to go out and just do it. Right.
You asked the question we really didn't answer. What's the practice? There is a practice every day. You've got to take time every day and think about this. Now, you're pretty structured in what you do. You sit down, you have your personal constitution, you make time in the morning, and you get your head on straight that way.
Yep.
My practice is much more loosey-goosey in the sense of, I just want to take time every day to decompress. Mm-hmm. I want to make sure there's a part of my day where I just stop and get quiet and get still and evaluate, how am I showing up to life? And, for me, the thing I'm working on every single day is just making this 2 millimeter shift. And it's just an amazing shift from fear to curiosity, because we all live in fear and that's never going to change.
Yep.
However, how we respond to that. And then when we start rewiring the brain, what was not natural can become second nature.
And what I'm determined to give the listener is, this is not about doing more.
No.
This is about
it's a reduction.
Getting more, doing less, reduction, getting rid of all the extra water and just have the flavor.
Yes.
And that's it. With a spoonful, now you blow the mind. You don't need gallons. You just need.
Yeah, it's not about.
We're all doing too much.
Yeah, more is not the answer.
Yeah.
It's like the old joke when I started opening restaurants. The joke was, oh my God, we're losing 10 cents a burger. We got to sell more. No, you're just going to lose more. We got to fix, the way we're approaching this.
Yeah.
And everyone is so ready to get out and conquer without stopping to say, is the ladder even on the right wall today? I'm at the top. Oh, shoot. It's the wrong wall.
Yeah.
You know?
I'll give you an extreme example. I have a client who sold 250 homes last year, right?
Wow. That is wow.
Yeah, right? Didn't make any money. So
what are you doing?
well, wait, so how are we going to make money? Sell 350 homes, right? Well, guess what? If you're not making money at 250, you're going to lose a lot more selling 350 because obviously something is
the
off.
equation is off balance.
Yeah.
Right. And, this is not about more.
Yeah. This is so funny that we got to this point because this is something that my husband, who is like, he's amazing. He's so insightful. He's so aware. And he's a great teacher and coach. And he's always telling me like, you're doing too much. Like he's on the couch, just like chilling with his video game, like trying to, and I'm like bouncing around from room to room. Like, what am I doing? And that's what I'm trying to get, this is something I'm really working on is like, okay, your brain is everywhere but here. You're not appreciating the moment. You're not actually being like focused and productive. You're just doing too much.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, this is a process that I'm going through with myself right now. Like, how can I really intentionally like pare it back?
It's true. Great story with
less
Fred down in the
things to
desert.
choose, less things
Fred
to
is
think
like
about.
this guy we know is staring at the mountains all morning in his backyard. And his wife comes out and she's like,
What are you doing?
Get to work. He's like, I have been all morning. He was just, right? Like sometimes, like we say motorcycle racing, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. Sometimes you got to slow down if you want to go fast.
Like with Jeffrey, the reason, one of the things I love most about Jeffrey is, again, going back to this whole reduction. He is all about paring it down to only what's necessary.
Yeah.
And he can get his work done every day by 11 or 12 o'clock. He's done with his work. Now, there might be some other work that has to get done, a showing or an appointment or a negotiation or an inspection. But his work is done every day. And that's what people don't grasp. And the work that he's getting done are laying down the foundation, all the things that he needs to have in place so he can have a successful business. And if he gets to noontime every day and he doesn't have an appointment or a showing or a contract, then he's done. And he's not looking for things to do.
Yeah.
And I'm peaceful because I know I've done what I need to do.
Peaceful.
I have clarified it. I'm not uneasy that I'm wasting the afternoon. I'm not stressed that I should be doing a better postcard or something. No, I know what I need to do. I've done it. And now I'm just joyful.
This is such a thing for so many people is they never have that peace because when there's nothing to do, they feel guilty. They feel anxious. They can't just relax because they feel like, oh my God, like there has to be more.
Yeah.
There has to be something that I'm not doing. And I know there's so much more that we can say, but I want to wrap this up for now and we'll come back in future episodes and really, kind of tease out some of these things that we've hinted at here today. So Thank you guys so much. It's been a wonderful conversation and we'll be back with another episode soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Coach.
All right.
All right.